Well, hello, welcome to my channel. I've got more strawberries to work on. I went to my local U-Pick strawberry farm. They had some beautiful, large, dark red berries. I got them all cleaned up. I picked 12 pounds. Didn't take very long. They were nice and big. And I've made strawberry jam earlier in an earlier video, but this one is strawberry jam, but it's made with honey. It's strawberry honey jam. So if you like honey, you'll love this. There's no sugar. There's no pectin, and it's a really easy one to make. See, I wanted to show you this little tool that I have. I don't know if you can see it, but this helps me hull the strawberries. You just literally put it underneath the green part and turn it. It's got these little teeth on it. It's fast. I did 6 pounds of strawberries in minutes. Washed them all up good. Got all the hulls out of them. So the recipe is 6 pounds of strawberries, 3 cups of honey, and I have local honey in here that's pretty sweet, I think. So they suggest that if your berries are very sweet and your honey is sweet, to maybe cut it down to 2.5 cups. But I leave it at 3. I think that's just the right amount. And then 2 Granny Smith apples. This is what's going to help in place of the pectin. You're going to cut the apple away from the core, and then you're going to grate it or run it in a food processor if you want to do that. But we're going to grate it, skin and all, and we're going to add those to our strawberries and honey, and then we're going to cook it up to 221 degrees. If you have a candy thermometer or an instant thermometer, that'll help. If you don't, we've talked before about when it gets to a boil that you can't stir down. It's quite a rapid boil, and you can't stir it down with a wooden spoon. You're pretty close to 220 degrees, and then I do have a thermometer, the instant read thermometer, so that's what I'll be using. So I've got my bowl of strawberries, the lemon juice. This is only going to take 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. Bottled lemon juice is fine. When I have my apples all grated and ready, we'll put everything together. I have my jam pan that I showed you in my other jam video. I didn't cut up, there were so many strawberries in 6 pounds, I didn't cut them with a knife. Normally I use a potato masher. But then I remembered my son had gotten me this for cooking hamburger, because I like to really cut it up fine when I make tacos or sloppy joes and things. And I thought, well, this will be perfect because these edges are sharp. So I put all my strawberries in this pan and I just push down with this all pretty much cut up in just a minute or so. It worked perfect. So if you have anything like that you cook your hamburger with to cut it up, this works better than a potato masher, and it's a lot of time saving for you, so you don't have to cut up your strawberries by hand. So then I have my grated apple here. It's getting brownish because of the air on it, but you grated 2 apples, peels and all. Now this can be hot water bath like you do any other jam. For 15 minutes is the time. But I'm going to use my steam canner. I'm using the smaller half pint jelly jars, so I'm not going to get out a big water bath canner and fill it all full of that water and wait for it to heat up, because this has to cook a little bit longer because it doesn't have any pectin in it. So we've got our apples in with our strawberries. We're going to add in our 3 cups of honey right now, and this is really good Michigan honey from a local hive. And then we need to add our 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. So you notice we're not adding any box of pectin. We've just got this mixed up. We're going to put it on our stove, turn up the heat to about a medium high, bring it to a boil, and then we're going to boil it until we get to our 221 degrees, and then we're going to turn it down to a medium low, where it's still bubbling slightly, but not boiling to a point where you can't stir it down. So I'll bring you back when we get to that point. Okay, so this has been bubbling on about a medium high. It's up to 220 degrees. 221 degrees is what mine's at. You can see that when I'm stirring it, it's still bubbling. It's not the kind of, boil that you can stir down. That's if you don't have a thermometer. While we're doing this, we're going to take a strainer and take out some of that foam. The foam doesn't hurt it. It just will set with the rest of the jam, and it'll be on top. So if you want it to be more clear, you can just use a strainer or a spoon will work, and take the foam out. And then we're going to let it cook for about another 40 minutes, but we're going to turn the heat down. And the longer it cooks, the thicker it's going to be. So, but don't forget, it's not going to be as thick as if you used pectin or sugar. This is honey with no added pectin, and it will still be thick. It just won't be as thick as if you use the pectin, but we're going to cook it down a little bit more. It's already cooked down about an inch or two, and I'll bring it back when it's all done, ready to can. Another thing you can do about the foam that I often do is put about a tablespoon of butter in with the jam, and you will notice that that will eventually, most of it, go away. I've taken out quite a bit of it, but I'm going to drop some butter in it. Now we have our jam cooked down quite a bit. It's cooked down probably about 3 inches of the liquid, so this will be pretty thick. I have my jars washed, and then I boil them. You don't have to sterilize them. Modern canning methods, according to the National Center for Home Food Preservation, you don't have to boil your lids and rings or sterilize your jars if you're going to be canning 10 minutes or more, which we will be. This will be a 15-minute canning process. So, as a matter of fact, they don't suggest that you do boil your lids. You could, of course, boil your rings and jars, but the newer lids, they suggest you don't boil them, but you do you. If that's something that you still like to do the way we used to, and you feel better about doing it that way, then just do it however you want to. I wouldn't boil them, maybe heat them up, but basically all you have to do is wash and dry them, have them clean and ready to go. So I have my jelly jar. And you'll be able to see kind of the consistency. It's more like preserves. There's bigger chunks of fruit in mine. If you want it to be more like a jam, you can always take your masher or your meat utensil like I use to chop them up, and you can chop them up even more and make it smaller. I would be very careful though, because this is hot. So your jar should be hot, your jam is hot, and it's going to go into a hot canner. Whether you're using a water bath canner or if you're going to do like I am and use a steam canner. You want your steam canner or water bath not to be boiling when you put your jars in, but you want it to be hot. If you're hot packing like we are, about 180 degrees is what your water should be in your canner when you get ready to put your jars in. So you fill your jar, bubbler, because mine is thicker fruit, like a preserve. I'm just going to go down through there with my chopstick, debubble that a little bit, go back around it with my paper towel now, put the lid on, and then this is important also, just fingertip tight, meaning you give it a little bit of a spin until it stops, and then just tighten it slightly. Don't crank it on there. You don't want it to be too tight or the air won't be able to get out of the jar. You want the air to escape and for the lid to suck down and make that seal. So another jar, we'll see how many jars we get. The amount of jars you get will depend on how far down you cooked your jam. If you cooked it down quite a bit like I did, you're going to get less jars, of course. And if you don't cook it down as far, you'll get more. And I wish you could be here to smell this honey and strawberry combination heated up. Just made my whole house smell so good. It's just unbelievable how good this smells. Oh, that's a little bit more than I want. Well, we're looking for a 1/4 inch of headspace on the jam. That's important also that you keep it at a 1/4 inch. Give another one a fill. You get tired of doing jam all the time that's just plain strawberry jam, and you feel like maybe you want to try something different, maybe a rhubarb strawberry jam, or in this case the honey strawberry jam or preserves. Gives you a little bit of variety to have on your shelf. So I'm going to go ahead and continue to fill my jars until I run out of jam, and I'll tell you how much we ended up with, and we'll get ready to put them in the steam canner. I have my steam canner heating up, and I do have a video on how a steam canner works. It'll explain more about it, but basically it takes the place of a water bath canner, but it's smaller. It takes 2.5 quarts of water instead of a big giant water bath canner. The water only comes up to this rack, and it's simmering right now, so we're ready to put our jam in. I ended up with 9 jars. All 9 jars will fit in our steam canner. Going to space them out just a little bit. Be careful from the steam coming up from the bottom. So 9 jars, and then also about 7/8 of a half pint. I'm going to go ahead and put that in the refrigerator. That way tomorrow and use it on my toast without having to open any of these jars. So now we're going to put our lid on, and in the back of the lid, just basic things about this. There's a hole for your steam. You're going to put that on and have the word fruit saver and your gauge that's on top facing the front. Perfect. One thing I like to do is take my vinegar and pour it into my pan. It keeps my jars a little bit more sparkly, keeps my canner nicer on the inside by using that. There's a gauge on top of my canner. If you look at the strawberry jam video I did before this one, there is a section in there, and I have it divided up into chapters where you can find where it explains how this works. I'm zone 1 because of my altitude, and that's one thing you need to look up if you don't know it. I'm 1,000 feet or below sea level, so I'm a zone 1. There is a zone 1 strip on the top here. I just keep my eye on that. When the red needle gets into that zone, I can begin timing my canning. And this will can for 15 minutes, whether you're using a steam canner or a hot water bath, either one. So now this is rocking a little bit. You can see the steam is coming out a little bit from the sides. Just going to turn this down a tiny bit because I haven't reached my zone yet. I'm just going to wait until it hits the zone, then I'm going to set my timer. Okay, my 15 minutes are up. I'm done canning. So I shut my heat off, let it set for 5 minutes before I took off the lid. Now I've let my jars sit inside the canner for about 2 minutes to let them get used to the outside air. I'm just going to go ahead and take them out of the canner. Try to keep them sitting straight up and down. Try not to tip them, even if there's water on top. That will evaporate. They're so hot, that isn't going to be a problem. Now they're going to sit for 12 to 24 hours. I usually let mine sit about, well, with jelly in these small jars, about 12 hours, but 16 hours sometimes. Just depends on when I get to them. And at that point, we will check all the seals, make sure they've all popped down, and then we'll remove the rings, wipe off the jars. But you can see with the vinegar in the canner, they stay pretty clean. They don't get water deposits on them. So then we will take the rings off. Like I said, you don't leave those on when you store canned goods, because if you do that, it can cause you to have a false seal. If one of your seals pops down and then later pops back up because it didn't seal correctly, a ring on there will hold that lid down and not let it pop up. It's really not sealed, but it appears to be because the ring's holding it down. So always take your rings off. So that way when you get your jar out and then you're ready to use it, you can check the seal and make sure that it is still sealed and that the seal is good. So there we are. And all I have left is a small amount of water in my canner, not much. If you have any questions about canning or steam canning, you can leave them in the comment section below, but try this recipe. I think you'll like it for something that's just a little bit different. It's still strawberry jam. Next time I'm going to can some rhubarb sauce, and I also may try some strawberry rhubarb jam. I still have probably a couple of pounds, 2 or 3 pounds of strawberries left that I need to take care of. So I'm thinking strawberry rhubarb jam sounds like my next project. Thanks for canning this jam with me. Take a minute to like my video if you would, and consider subscribing for more recipes like this. We also do some baking, do some kids baking. There's a lot of different projects we like to do here. So thank you again for stopping by and hanging out with me. See you later, guys. It's so nice and red. It's beautiful.